Hi, my name is Joanna and I'm a member of our training and support team here at Hawks Learning. For today's training, we are going to review our extensive reporting and analytics options offered in the gradebook. Now to get started, we're going to access the gradebook through our Teach account. If you do have any questions about creating your Teach account, feel free to reach out to your dedicated training and support specialist. So I'll select my course and I will navigate to the Reports tab. Now, under the Reports tab, you will see we have quite a few different reports to choose from. I'm going to cover our key reports for today's training. However, if you wanted to explore any of our additional reports down below, you can simply hover over them to see an overview of what is included in that report. So I'm going to get started now in the All Student Scores report. I'm going to click here. Now this is going to be the best bird's eye view of your student grades. So this is where you'll be able to see all of your students and all of their grades. Now here I just click display student scores, but if you wanted to select a different section or specific students or specific types of assignments, you can do that before clicking display student scores here. Now here you'll see all of your students listed and your assignment groups listed here as well. Now, one thing that we added earlier this summer was this graphical data and displays of graphical statistics. So if we click here, you'll see first a bar chart including the number of students in each letter category. There's also a pie chart, which includes the percentage of each student in each category. And then we also have an analysis of the grade data, including average and median scores, as well as standard deviation. So all of that is now available here right next to final grades. Now over on the right, we have all of our assignment groups listed. Now remember, for tests and quizzes, those will be raw scores so that you'll be able to see exactly the score your student earned. But when we expand out the homework category using that green plus sign, you're going to see symbols here. Now, since there are a limited number of grades a student can receive on the homework, since we have our mastery approach, you will see it broken down by symbol. So what you want to see a lot of are these green check marks here. So that indicates that the student successfully completed the assignment on time, they reached the mastery percentage, and therefore they have earned a 100%. If you see an orange clock, that indicates that the student did not reach mastery or did not complete the assignment on time, and it's therefore a 0. The way to tell the difference between if the student just didn't reach mastery or if they never tried the assignment is if you click on that symbol, if you see the option to review the assignment, it means they did try it, they just didn't reach the mastery percentage. If you click on an orange clock and you do not see the review assignment option, it means that they never attempted the assignment. Now, the only time that a student's grade here in the homework would be different from a 100 or a 0 is if they completed it late and you have a late penalty in place. So it was therefore graded according to that late penalty. So if you hover over any of those yellow check marks indicating a late assignment, you'll be able to see the percentage that the student earned. Now, if you do click on any of these assignments, you'll see you have a few different options. From here, you can edit an individual student's score or their due date without affecting the rest of the class. So if you wanted to edit the due date for the whole class, you would do that under assignments and lesson due dates. But if it's just one student needing an extension, you could come in here, adjust their due date, and save it without having to leave this report. All right. Another option you have here when you click on a student's name is the review, or a student's symbol here, is the review assignment option. Now, if I click on the review assignment option, it's going to load our assignment reviewer, where we can view exactly the questions the student received, how they answered them, and then we can also see how long they spent on each question. So if I click here on review attempt, I will then be brought to that next screen. Now, this is a good place to check if a student tells you they had trouble with a particular question on the homework or on a test. Since we do randomize the questions that the students receive, both in terms of order and the versions of the questions, this is the best way to see exactly what a student is referring to. So here you could click through, view the questions and how the student answered them. Up in the top right corner, you have the amount of time the student spent. So this can also be a good report to check if you have any concerns about cheating. This is a good way you can check if you see, a very low number of seconds here at the top and the student has the correct answer to a complicated question. That may be a good indicator that they're using an app or something like that to solve the question. So even just letting your students know you have the ability to view this type of data can be a good deterrent from attempting those types of workarounds. Now up at the top under the question, you can select hide correct. So if you did want to focus on just the incorrect questions, you could do that here. Now for lessons, since we do employ the mastery approach, you wouldn't have the option to provide credit here, but if this were a web test or a quiz, you'd be able to add partial credit for any of the assignments. So here you would see a space for a number of points, and you could add in however much partial credit you'd like. All right, so now we'll switch back to that report. Now, if you do make any of those changes in terms of due date or grade, you will see these little asterisks or this little dagger symbol. And if you forget what any of those symbols mean, you can always click the Show Legend button. One other symbol you may see is this blue symbol. What this means is that the assignment has a due date, but it is not yet passed. So those grades are not yet factored into the student's overall grade. All right. So that is all student scores. Going back to reports and detailed student grades is going to be the exact same type of information that we just saw in all student scores, but we're going to see it student by student. So just like I did there, you can click on this in the search bar to select a student from the drop-down menu, or you can start to type in the student's name and they will pop up for you to select. Now from this report, you'll be able to see all of the assignments listed, separated by assignment group, just as they were in all student scores. You can then see when the student submitted the assignments, the status with those symbols again. And then over on the right, we have this actions column. If you click here, this is where you have those same options as before if you clicked on any of the symbols. So you can edit a student's score, edit their due date, or review their assignment from here. Up at the top, you do have a few different options as well. If you want to email the student directly, you can do that. If you want to transfer them to another section, you can do that from this report too. Or you can click View Lesson Activity, and this will allow you to see the student's time on task data. So if I were to run this report here, I would be able to see, let's say maybe we remove the date range in our case, and we'd be able to see the student's time on task. So the amount of time they spent and learned, practice, certify, and overall for each lesson. Going back to reports, we'll now move on to search by criteria. Now, search by criteria is a really cool report where you have a lot of options available to you. So this is where you can filter your students down based on multiple criteria. So maybe you want to use this report to find your students who may be struggling, or maybe around the time where students may be withdrawing. You want to find students who have low grades and haven't been engaged in the courseware. So maybe you want to find your students who have a grade between a 0 and a 70, and your students who haven't logged in 3 days. Now, for the sake of our data, I'm going to uncheck this. We'll then filter the report. And here you will see a list of students who meet these criteria. So you could then check the checkbox here and click Send Message, and you could send a message to all of these students at once. It would blind copy them, so they wouldn't see each other's names. So this is a great place for you to email these students saying something like, see me during office hours or virtual office hours, or something like, make sure you're logging in to stay on top of your assignments. So anything like that, you could send them right through here. I've also heard of instructors using this report on the other end in terms of locating their students who are really high performers. So sending that quick note of recognition, keep up the good work, something like that. Now, if there is a combination of these filters that you really like here, you could save filter options. And that way, next time you come in, here under saved filters, you could just select Weekly and Jeopardy students and filter report to pull that list of students. All right. Going back to reports now, we'll move into Assignment Reviewer. Now, Assignment Reviewer is our most comprehensive report here in the courseware. This is where you can see the most data all in one place. Now you do have the same data for both lessons and web tests available to you here in Assignment Reviewer. However, I'm going to stick to the Lessons tab for today. All right. Now, here at the top, you will have this bar graph. This will be a breakdown of submission status. So at a glance, with that same color coding as we saw in all student scores, we can see, are our students staying on top of the assignments, reaching mastery and getting those 100s, or do I have some students kind of lagging behind with those zeros or late grades? If I scroll down towards the bottom, I can then see all of my assignments listed, as well as the average class statistics here. To dive a little deeper, I can click right on the name of a lesson, and it will bring me to a list of all of my students in my class. So I can then click right on the student's name, and it will bring me to review that assignment, that student's individual assignment again. So another location where I can review the student's exact assignment. I can also see here the student's individual time on task data. So again, I know we saw this before in another report, but as I said, this is the most comprehensive. We have this all in one place for you here in Assignment Reviewer. Now over on the right, you can see the students' number of attempts they took, how long they spent in each mode of the courseware, and how long they spent total. This is a great place to check if you have a student who says, you know, last night I tried this assignment for hours and I couldn't get anywhere with it. So you could come to this report, verify their story first off and see how long they did actually spend. And then something that you may want to look for is the amount of time they spent in Certify and the number of attempts they took. Here, this last student in my class, I see that they spent all of their time in Certify, so no time in practice and no time in Learn. And I see that they have 5 attempts at Certify. So this is a pretty good indicator that this student is likely trying to guess their way through Certify. So they're not putting in the work to actually learn the material. They're just putting in random answers, trying to get through it and reach mastery. So a good recommendation for a student in this situation would be to go ahead and go back to practice. Use those learning aids that are available to you. You have the error-specific feedback. You have the step-by-step walkthroughs. You have access to the Learn screens for the specific topics, which include the videos. So all of that help is available there in practice with no penalty. So the idea is the more time they spend in practice, the less time you'll see in Certify, and hopefully you'll see more like the rest of the class, just 1 or 2 attempts for Certify. Now, one other feature you have here within Assignment Reviewer is the Analytics tab. Now, the Analytics tab is where you can see on a per question basis where your students were struggling most. So if you scroll down, you'll see every question listed, and you can sort by incorrect. You can then bring to the top the questions that your students did struggle with the most. And over on the left, if you click on the serial number, you'll be able to see an example of that question. So this is a really great part of the report to check if you are preparing a review session before a test, or if you're going to, at the start of class, ask if there are any questions on the homework. I know sometimes that question can be met with silence. Students are hesitant to reach out, speak up about what they're struggling with. So this allows you, without naming names, to say, look, as a class, you seem to all have trouble with this particular topic, or a lot of you seem to struggle with this particular topic. And so you could cover that question in class. This is also a good place to check between semesters. So I know we're getting to the start of the semester now, but this is always a good report to consider when you are considering any changes to your tests, quizzes, or even homework assignments between semesters. So if you see that there are questions here where students are seeming to struggle, maybe that's a question you want to swap out, or maybe you find a question where all the students are getting it correct every time. Maybe that's one you want to swap out for the next semester. This could also just be a good gauge of your teaching, and if there are certain topics that you want to emphasize more to the students that maybe you want to spend a little more time on because they are showing that they're struggling. So a lot can be gleaned from the information here. Now that wraps up our overview of the reports. Before we go, I do want to mention one other question that I do hear from time to time that I want to bring up to you all, and that is if you have diagnostic tests set up. So that is if you have any web tests where you've gone to additional settings and set it as a diagnostic. So you indicate a percentage that a student needs to meet for a particular lesson. And as long as they answer, let's say 80% of the questions on a particular lesson correctly, they will automatically place out of that lesson. So if you wanted to see which lessons a student placed out of, you could come down here to the diagnostic certifications report. And this report would allow you to see which lessons your students placed out of based on the diagnostic. That way, when you see all of their completed assignments within one of the other reports, you know which ones they actually had to put that work into and which ones they placed out of because they proved proficiency with that diagnostic test. So that's one of the questions I do hear most often. All right, so that wraps things up in terms of our reporting and analytics tools that I wanted to highlight today. I appreciate your time, and if you do have any questions, always remember that you can reach out directly to your dedicated training and support specialist, or you can email our training email, which is training@hawkslearning.com. All right, so we'll now take a look and see if there are any other questions here. And just one question here, and that is, are there any steps I can take if I do see my students are skipping over practice? So what we can do here is, that's a great question. We can go to assignments and then to curriculum. We'll select our section. Now here at the top, you'll see the second checkbox down is our require practice feature. So this is where you can allow students to unsuccessfully attempt certify one, maybe you want to change this to 2 times before requiring practice. And if they are not successful, they'll then be required to attempt 80% of the practice questions. So this setting allows students who are feeling confident to jump right into certify and go ahead and give it a try. But if they are not successful, they don't reach that mastery, when they go back to practice and receive that customized set of questions based on what they were missing, so that adaptive component of the courseware, rather than be able to just jump right back into certify, they'll actually have to try whatever percentage you put here. So in this case, 80% of the questions in practice before they can unlock certify and get back into it. So this feature kind of helps push students into the intended learning path where they can really focus on those resources that are available to them. All right, so we don't have any other questions today. Oh, actually one more just popped up. Is there a template for the email shown just now? So I believe you may be referring to when we were in reports and in search by criteria. So if you did decide to filter your students down and send them a message. So here, if we select our students and click send message, you would be able to type whatever you'd like. So we don't necessarily have a template for that, but you would be able to come up with whatever email you'd like. And as you can see right here, all the students are BCC'd. All right, let's see, any other questions before we go? All right, well, thank you all so much for your time. I definitely appreciate it and appreciate you spending some time with us in this training series as we get started and as we get set up for the new semester. As I said, if any questions come up, feel free to reach out to your dedicated training and support specialist or use that training@hawkslearning.com inbox. All right, hope you all have a great day and a smooth start to the semester.